Brian, Jane, Lieve, and Phil. A new way to start your day.
Good morning, I'm Charles Osgood, and this is Sunday Morning. With Super Tuesday just 2 days off, the presidential primary battles are already down to the wire. And based on what we've seen in this year's contest so far, outcomes are not always predictable. Conclusions are not foregone. Our Sunday Morning cover story is a tale of 4 candidates told from 4 perspectives, among them that of Phil Jones.
It's called Super Tuesday, the mother lode of all presidential primaries. The day voters here in New York, California, Ohio, and 10 other states have their say. Just ahead on Sunday Morning, a look at who's up, who's down, and what's at stake as this crucial Campaign 2000 contest comes down to the wire.
Politics and music are both human expressions that involve the emotions as well as the intellect. There's one group of performers from just off our shores for whom the very act of playing seems political to some. Martha Teichner tells us the complex story of musicians who provoke both hearts and minds.
To most Americans, the idea of rioting over a concert seems pretty bizarre. But here you have it, Cuban Americans in high gear last fall when a band from Castro country dared to play Miami. Isn't it just as bizarre that the political battle between Havana and Washington is being waged at the moment by a group of old men and a small boy?
This Sunday morning, Elian Gonzalez versus the Buena Vista Social Club, the game of propaganda poker.
A Piece of the Rock is a report from Bill Geist about one author's battle to get into print.
Some of the greatest writers in history have struggled to make ends meet. We'll visit the best-selling author in the United States at his night job later on Sunday Morning.
All this month, the month of the Academy Awards, Sunday Morning is going Hollywood with reports on movies and entertainment that go beyond handicapping the Oscars. This morning, Mark Phillips will be talking with Sam Mendes, the British director of American Beauty. With Byron Pitts, we'll retrace the steps of Granny D, the remarkable woman who's walked across America to make her case for campaign finance reform. And Alan Pizzi will have a reporter's notebook on the terrible toll flooding has exacted on the nation of Mozambique. First, the headlines for this Sunday morning, the 5th of March. The leaders of China opened a parliament session today with some tough talk on the subject of Taiwan. Correspondent Barry Peterson is in Beijing.
Amid the pomp of today's opening session of the National People's Congress, tough words and thinly veiled warnings over Taiwan's drift toward independence. We will not sit idly by, warned Premier Zhu Rongji, and watch any serious separatist activity. It was a crowd pleaser. The Chinese make no bones about taking military action if Taiwan declares independence. Now they've added a new wrinkle. Taiwan must negotiate reunification and soon, or risk war. The saber-rattling is supposed to intimidate Taiwan's presidential candidates in an election later this month. It's backfired. Afraid of looking weak, they're taking harder stands against China. It's also rocking the boat for American companies anxious for a new U.S. trade deal with China. Congress could take it up this coming week. Opponents are labeling China a bully. China insists Taiwan is a domestic issue, theirs to deal with alone. Instead, with mean words and military threats, they're once again making it an issue the whole world can't ignore. For Sunday Morning, this is Barry Peterson in Beijing.
The U.S. Army reportedly wants to cut back on its reliance on citizen soldiers. According to today's New York Times, the Pentagon has decided to limit the tours of reservists and National Guardsmen to a maximum of 6 months tops. President Clinton will be in Selma, Alabama today to mark the 35th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. An attack that day by state troopers on civil rights marchers became a turning point in the civil rights struggle. The world's population is growing in girth as well as numbers. The World Watch Institute says there are now as many people overweight as there are underfed. The group estimates that's about 1 billion people in the world with not enough to eat. and 1 billion eating too much. In sports, the nation's #1 college basketball team, Stanford, was upset by unranked UCLA. With seconds left in the game, Jerome Moiso of the Bruins laid the ball in to tie it at 80 and send the game into overtime. Then, with time running out in the overtime period, Stanford had a 1-point lead, and missed Bruins shot either hit the rim or didn't. If it didn't, the shot clock would have run out during the ensuing scramble, and Jaron Rush's winning jumper wouldn't have counted. After much discussion, the refs decided that it did count. A big upset win for UCLA over Stanford, 94-93. Now the weather. Cool, gusty winds will whip heavy rain across much of California today, with snow in the mountain regions, balmy in the plains and Midwest, and the east will be dry, with a chilly day in store for New England. As for the week ahead, warmer weather will work its way across the east, colder by midweek in the Midwest, and keep that umbrella handy from the Rockies to the Pacific. When we come back, a Sunday morning look ahead to Super Tuesday.
Hello, I'm Agriculture Commissioner Bob Crawford. There's a deadly plant disease spreading throughout South Florida, and we need your help to stop it. Citrus canker, a highly contagious bacterial disease, threatens backyard citrus trees and ultimately our $8 billion citrus industry. Unfortunately, the only way to stop this raging disease is to remove infected trees and others exposed to them. We appreciate your understanding, and remember, eliminating canker today means healthy citrus for tomorrow.
On an April morning in 1912, over 2,000 dreams set sail for America. On a June evening, 85 years later, the Broadway musical that celebrates those dreams made history all over again when it won the Tony Award for Best Musical, Titanic.
BV Wine sponsors Titanic, a new musical, coming to the Broward Center for the Performing Arts, part of the Fort Lauderdale Broadway series.
Kids simply love wholesome bread, but they might be surprised it's so good for them. Ready, Billy? 1 loaf of soft, delicious, wholesome bread has the protein of 1.5 pounds of peas. But that's not all. A little wider. It also has the thiamine of 2 dozen oranges. And Wholesome's loaded with the calcium of 14 ounces of milk. Wholesome. Surprisingly nutritious. Billy, guess how much iron's in 1 loaf?
I don't know what it is, but it's ugly, and I want to get rid of it.
Can you see the water spots? Well, those are minerals from our hard water, I think.
You can hear how thick this stuff is.
It's Lime Away. Works great. Cleans lime, calcium, and rust.
Oh, this stuff is coming right off without even rubbing it.
Look at that! Looks like a lot of that's coming right off, doesn't it?
It dissolved it instantly.
Right.
Lime Away, the easy way.
And it's going to save me a lot of money because I'm going to fire the cleaning lady.
Don't say that.
CBS Tonight. When you've lost all faith, when you've given up hope, one show will remind you you're not alone.
You are the one.
Touched by an Angel. Then, when Hollywood's most spoiled actress gets lost in a small town, she'll find something she never expected. A life.
Stick around anyway.
Now, why would I want to do that?
But is she willing to give up Tinseltown for a chance at love?
Oh, that's insane.
Celia Ward and Jane Curtin.
I want you.
In a world premiere, Catch a Falling Star after Angel, CBS Tonight.
It is down to the wire in the Super Tuesday primary races. And for the 2 leading Republican candidates and the 2 Democrats, time and opportunity are running out. To cover this round robin of primary races, we've summoned a round robin of our own CBS News political correspondents who've been watching the candidates close up. Leading off is Bill Whitaker on George W. Bush.
It wasn't supposed to be like this. George W. Bush slugging it out, low on cash, still trying to define himself going into Super Tuesday.
Calling me an anti-Catholic bigot is not right.
In the beginning, he had it all. The name, the big name endorsements, the big money. Early on, as opponent after opponent fell in his wake, even he bought into the buzz of inevitability.
And I intend to become the next president of the United States.
The Texas governor rode out of the West offering something old, a big tax cut.
It's not the government's money, it's the people's money.
And declaring himself something new, a compassionate conservative.
I don't think they ought to balance their budget on the backs of the poor.
A winning combination that was supposed to make New Hampshire easy sledding. After he lost, a chief aide said privately she felt in her gut they were going down. He urged his backers to stay the course.
What we don't need is nervous Nellies. I've got a plan to win, and I'm going to win.
They retooled for South Carolina, toned down the compassion, fired up the conservative.
The Honorable George Bush.
While Bush embraced the Christian right at his controversial visit to Bob Jones University, his allies bludgeoned John McCain with telephone calls and TV ads. Bush won the primary but lost his way. When voters in Michigan rejected his Southern makeover, Bush found himself labeled a captive of the far right and boxed in with limited appeal beyond core Republicans.
The Republicans are increasingly turning to me.
It's a perception not even last week's wins in Virginia, Washington, and North Dakota have dispelled. He knows he must morph back to his original form, compassionate, inclusive, if he is to win the diverse range of Super Tuesday states. With about a third of the electorate Democrat and a third independent, no Republican can win in November with only Republican votes. So if he wants to be what he once seemed destined to be, the guy who can put Republicans back in the White House, George W. Bush has to broaden his appeal.
I'm staying on message.
This is Phil Jones, keeping watch on the McCain campaign. As John McCain looks to Tuesday, he knows he must win in New York, New England, and California to stay alive. What he doesn't know has his declaration of war against Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell, leaders of the evangelical political right, backfired. He calls his remarks last Monday the most important speech of this campaign.
Neither party should be defined by pandering to the outer reaches of American politics and the agents of intolerance, whether they be Louis Farrakhan or Al Sharpton on the left, or Pat Robertson or Jerry Falwell on the right.
But in these final days, McCain's holy war is being overpowered by an unbelievably nasty air war against him. There's a $2.5 million TV ad paid for by a couple of Governor Bush's wealthy Texas supporters, Sam and Charles Wiley.
Last year, John McCain voted against solar and renewable energy.
This is what is evil and wrong with American politics today, and that has got to be fixed.
And Bush is using the issue of funding breast cancer research in a tough radio ad, even though McCain has voted for billions of dollars in national health research.
We deserve a candidate with a record on women's issues we can trust.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
McCain's natural instinct is, when hit back twice as hard. But he did that in earlier primaries and was labeled the negative bad guy. John McCain is clearly frustrated. As this goes down to the wire, it's hard to see any good guys.
This is John Roberts with the Gore campaign. As the vice president marches toward what appears to be his inevitable nomination, he is ignoring Bill Bradley and has turned his attention instead to the Republican challengers.
Both of them want to take away a woman's right to choose. I will fight to protect and defend a woman's right to choose.
But the Republicans are firing back with both barrels. It's a preview of what Gore can expect in the fall, and already one target looms above all others.
It doesn't take much to say Buddhist temples, Mr. Vice President.
They have drawn a bead on the issue Gore may be most vulnerable on, campaign fundraising irregularities from the last election. Chief among them is his appearance at the now famous Buddhist temple fundraiser outside Los Angeles. It took on new significance this week when Gore associate Maria Shaw, seen here in red, was convicted for lying about the source of more than $100,000 raised there.
The Vice President of the United States went to a Buddhist monastery. A Buddhist monastery asked monks and nuns to renounce their vows of poverty, pay thousands of dollars in campaign contributions so they could spiritually commune with him. Then he said he didn't know where he was.
The vice president has offered several explanations for what happened here. First saying he thought it was a community outreach event. Later adjusting that to say he knew it was finance related, but not actually a fundraiser. But why is what happened here in 1996 so important to Campaign 2000? It's because the latest polls show that this election won't turn so much on the issues as much as the issue of character.
Sherry Babich-Jaffe is a California political analyst.
Character has become such a big issue on this campaign because of two words:
Bill Clinton.
In the run-up to Super Tuesday and beyond, listen for Gore to portray himself as a leading advocate of campaign finance reform. But in the end, his vision of reform for the future may be clouded by these lingering images from the past.
You know, next Tuesday's the day. Next Tuesday the day.
This is Bill Plant reporting on the Bradley campaign. The former senator, basketball star, and Rhodes Scholar, whose friends always thought he would be president, pursued that goal under the hopeful banner, "It can happen."
We're putting on the full court press, and we can make this happen. Thank you very much.
But now, as Super Tuesday approaches, it's painfully obvious that it won't happen.
If you have
that became clear after Bradley's embarrassingly poor showing last week in Washington State. He spent 6 days campaigning there, jettisoning the rest of his schedule in an attempt to produce one victory.
That's history, and we're moving on.
After last Tuesday, Bradley's disheartened staff thought he had 3 options: continue attacking Al Gore, drop out, or take the high road and continue to talk issues. Bradley has chosen the latter.
That's the promise of America.
The decision to go out on a positive note is reflected in Bradley's latest advertising. None of the new ads even mentions Al Gore. They're all about the issues and ideas which propelled him into this race.
If everybody had health care, if every child had a good teacher, if we made sure we took the money out of politics, this country would soar. What this whole campaign...
In one sense, Bill Bradley did Al Gore a big favor by getting into this race. There's no question that the competition sharpened up the vice president's stilted campaign. But Bradley may also have hurt Gore by pushing him to the left and opening new lines of attack for the Republicans. At this point, the campaign is reading polls which hold out no hope. But when Bradley was asked a few days ago why he doesn't just drop out, he responded that he had entered the race to change the political process. So, as he marches on to his likely last hurrah, Bill Bradley joins that small group of politicians who have, throughout the nation's history, believed that ideas matter more than success.
Correspondent Bill Plant with the Bradley campaign. So, where does all this leave us 2 days before Super Tuesday? Joining us now is our CBS News Director of Surveys, Kathy Frankovic. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning.
Who has the most to lose the day after tomorrow?
John McCain. John McCain has to do well on Tuesday, and he might. He's looking pretty good in the New England states, close in New York State, and perhaps within striking distance in places like Missouri and Ohio. But the reason that John McCain has to do well on Tuesday is that a week from Tuesday, things are very bad for him. There are primaries in 6 southern states. More than 300 delegates will be awarded on March 14th. 2 of those states happen to be Texas and Florida. They have governors with the last name of Bush.
How about California? What happens there?
California is a winner-take-all state. It's a big state. On the Republican side, there are 162 delegates. John McCain is popular in the state. The California primary system lets anybody vote for anybody. He could be the popular choice, but for delegates, only the votes of registered Republicans count. George Bush is clearly ahead with that group.
So Democrats can vote, but that doesn't count.
Yeah, and John McCain could get more votes and no delegates.
Speaking of Democrats, does Bradley have a chance?
Well, he hasn't won any states up to now, and in every state for which there are public polls on Tuesday, he's well behind Al Gore. So it could very well be that he comes out of Tuesday still with no victories.
Kathy Frankovic, thank you. Ahead on Sunday morning, the long march of Granny D.
This portion of Sunday Morning is sponsored by Charles Schwab. When we created a smarter kind of investment firm, we also created a smarter kind of investor.
You see what Duvall did yesterday? Yeah. He shouldn't have laid up on that short par 5. He should have used the 3, wouldn't gone for it. What was he thinking?
See what Teltex did yesterday? Yeah. They should have offered $68 a share for that Italian multinational. They should have acquired something with less long-term debt, better distribution in Pacific Rim.
When we created a smarter kind of investment firm, we created a smarter kind of investor.
Dumb.
So
I had
fun.
That's how I'll call you.
Yeah, okay.
Well. Hey. Next time I'll remember to bring enough cash for both of us.
time, use the Visa check card instead of cash. It's fast, easy, and accepted everywhere Visa is. So you can get what you need and get on with life.
Let's move on. Do your business.
Your business is important to us.
It doesn't sound sincere.
Your business is important to us.
Take 55.
Your business is important to us.
Put a beat in between business and is.
Your business is important to us.
There's an easier way to treat people better. E-customer service from IBM.
Does the federal law that keeps disabled children in school also keep potentially dangerous children in school? 60 Minutes tonight.
An abused child.
He would have died.
A dedicated social worker commits a desperate act.
She kidnapped that boy.
That could lead to a devastating decision.
I promised him he would never have to go back. No!
An all-new Family Law, CBS Monday.
The presidential candidates aren't the only ones speaking out on campaign finance reform these days. A lot of ordinary people have been taking a stand as well, one of whom has received particular attention. Far from just talking the talk, she most definitely has been walking the walk, as Byron Pitts tells us in this postcard from Washington, D.C.
Granny, go! Go, Granny, go! Go, Granny, go! Go, Granny, go!
Along the Lincoln Memorial, there were chants and cheers to mark an achievement. Doris Haddock, 5 feet tall, 90 years old, a mother of 2, a grandmother to 8, and a great-grandmother to 12 more, had just walked 3,000 miles from California to Washington, D.C. Americans love success stories, but the story of Granny D is less about success and more about struggle. The struggle of one woman with bad knees, a bad back, and a history of emphysema after 50 years of smoking. The struggle of all God's creatures to find a road to travel and a cause to follow. In a world of shortcuts, Doris Haddock took the long way.
It's beautiful out here.
Yes. This view is quite lovely, don't you think? It seems as if everywhere I have gone across the United States, there's something wonderful to look upon. It almost whispers history.
It's been a journey filled with hardships. With little cash, Doris Haddock had to depend on strangers, the people who put her up at night, provided hot meals, companionship on the lonely roadways of America. And everywhere she's been, from big cities to small towns, through 4 pairs of shoes and 4 straw hats, even a makeshift birthday party.
Birthday to you.
Through it all, Granny D whispered the same song.
I'm walking across the country because I feel that a poor man today has to give up his soul to the corporations. And I want my great-grandchildren, my 12 great-grandchildren, to be brought up in a country that is of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Doris believes democracy is in danger because large corporations and big money donors contribute so much cash to political campaigns. Therefore, she believes members of Congress are beholden to special interest groups and not voters.
We must defend the position of the individual.
So this retired secretary decided to walk across America to show her support for campaign finance reform.
Big money has got to go.
The system is broken, she believes. The time has come to fix it.
What happened to the days of just calling your congressman up and making your complaint over the phone?
Well, today, the congressman who has sold his vote to a wealthy man or to a corporation or to a union is subservient to them, and they are no longer representative of their constituents.
Doris's son Jim says his mother has always found a cause, even while raising a family.
And this, I didn't have an upbringing like other kids. My mother hated housekeeping. Our house was always a mess. Never dirty, but always a mess. She didn't like to cook, so we had peanut butter sandwiches under a blanket. She'd call it a tent and would be going on a picnic, and she always had a cause. Dances for teenage kids. She fought a highway in our hometown. These battles have always been there. She never went looking for them. But when she sees something that's really wrong, she will address it. She always has.
Doris Haddock, the great Granny D.
For the past 12 months, Doris Haddock had her eye on Capitol Hill, her final destination.
Shame on you, senators and congressmen, who have turned this headquarters of a great and self-governing people into a bawdy house. If I have offended you speaking this way on your front steps, that is as it should be. Take your wounded pride, get off your backs and onto your feet, and go across the street to clean your room.
But in the end, despite Doris Haddock's lively speeches and tireless crusade, no one here really expects the system to get fixed anytime soon. For now, there's simply not enough votes in Congress to pass a campaign finance reform bill. Lawmakers like Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott simply see her cause as wasted effort.
So I wish her well. I'm glad she was able to make it. But let me suggest that maybe she could do more for her children and her grandchildren and future generations if she deal with issues that really affect people's lives every day. Thank you very much.
Still, Doris Haddock believes she has planted a seed. Perhaps others will push it through Congress some other day.
Probably within 10 years.
Within 10 years?
Oh, yeah. It'll be after I've gone. But I'll see it from the other side. I'll look down and say, hooray!
For now, Granny D will put away her walking shoes. This was her last great cause, and she hopes her greatest legacy.
You can't sit back and be a couch potato and get anywhere. That isn't a life. I say get a life. Get involved. Don't be afraid to get involved. If something falls in your lap and there's something you can do about it, do it.
Ahead on Sunday Morning, a stop sign in the sand at Daytona Beach.
In any business, there can be only one priority. At Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, we have never forgotten ours. Not surprisingly, we measure success a little differently.
They've grown beans into one of the world's hottest businesses. Which professional services firm serves Starbucks coffee? The answer is Deloitte & Touche. They've built more jetliners than all other manufacturers combined. Which professional services firm goes above and beyond for Boeing? The answer is Deloitte & Touche.
You know when it's time to focus on heart health. You're even taking vitamin E. But Centrum knows there's more to it. There's selenium, garlic, and CoQ10. Now, getting all this is as easy as Centrum. New Centrum-focused formulas, each a blend of nutrients more completely focused on one health concern. You know when to focus on your bones. You know you need calcium. But zinc, D, and magnesium may help too. Getting all this is as easy as new Centrum-focused formulas, focused on specific health needs.
It happened this week. The end of a proud tradition in Daytona Beach, or perhaps the beginning of the end. We heard a disquieting, or in this case a quieting report, that they would put a stop to driving your car or dune buggy or whatever right on the Daytona Beach beach. It was a free and easy mixture of the sea, the surf, and the internal combustion engine. A place where the rubber met the sand, so to speak. As of this week, motor vehicles are banned, but only from a 1-mile strip in the heart of Daytona Beach. You can play, or even snooze without fear of being run over by a driver who thinks he's on the Daytona Speedway. It's only for that 1 mile of beach, though. The other 16 still are home to life that splashes in the foam, and to one species in particular, the motored species, that's vehicular. A Sunday passage for March 5th, 2000. Ahead on Sunday morning, the terrible toll of flooding in Mozambique.
The address is CBS. Make yourself at home, for everybody loves Raymond.
CBS 4 News, still South Florida's fastest growing newscast. Important investigations.
Cell phone distributors is issuing an alert regarding health and safety.
Big breaking coverage.
More on a breaking story we brought you first at 5.
Helpful consumer reports.
Who's got the best deal?
Exclusive stories.
Tonight only on 4.
And now, South Florida's #1 choice at 11.
When you're buying or selling real estate, make sure you enter the world of Buy Owner.
I sold my home in less than 6 weeks, got the price I wanted, and saved over $6,000. Thanks, Buy Owner.
They do make a difference. We sold an apartment in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Buy Owner.
It was really easy. We sold our house in 3 months and saved over $6,000. Thanks, Buy Owner.
With Buy Owner, it's you that makes the difference. Call now.
Do you suffer from dry, itchy skin? Now there's Respite Anti-Itch Lotion. Winter is peak dry skin season, and dry skin can cause an itch that just won't stop. We call that winter itch. Respite Lotion is specifically formulated to stop winter itch. Respite contains special emollients to moisturize dry skin and 2 medications to provide prompt itch relief. Stop needless suffering this winter. Get Respite, the winter itch relief medicine.
Respite available at CVS, Eckerd, and Rite Aid.
Monday, visit the newly renovated Russian Tea Room on Martha Stewart Living.
It's Sunday morning on CBS. And here again is Charles Osgood.
The fatal shooting of a 6-year-old by another 6-year-old this past week, combined with shootings at 2 fast food restaurants, focused attention yet again on the issue of gun control. So Rita Braver had some questions, the same questions many Americans would have, for the top lobbyist of the National Rifle Association.
When incidents happen like the ones that happened in the past week, there are so many people who turn around and say, well, you know, that's what you get for the NRA's activities. That's what you get when you have people who are just advocates of gun ownership.
Well, obviously we would take exception to that. In the case, let's look at the specifics. In the case of the horrible tragedy in Michigan, you had a 6-year-old boy living in a crack house, which everybody seems to know is a crack house, 40 or 50 drug deals a day going on there, known to the police. And the president's proposal is to stop by and drop off a trigger lock. I think most Americans also realize that that's absurd. I think a lot of our opponents, politicians that oppose the right to keep and bear arms, try to fan the flames of emotion surrounding horrible incidents like the one in Michigan and like the one in Pennsylvania, to push their legislative priorities. And to the extent
you believe that the broad availability of guns has nothing to do with the kinds of incidents that we saw in the last week?
No, I do not believe that the broad ability of firearms has anything to do with the kind of incidents we saw last week. In the 1950s, there was just as many guns per capita, but there was parenting and personal responsibility as well.
The president this week, in advocating his gun legislation, said, I don't think most Americans have any idea what a stranglehold the NRA has on this Congress. What's your response to that?
Well, we vigorously support our position in the United States Congress. And if congressmen and senators didn't think that their constituents at home believed the same way, they'd be voting differently.
How much will the National Rifle Association spend this year on its lobbying efforts?
As much as our membership contributes.
Give me a dollar figure.
Last year, we had the best year in our history in terms of contributions to the lobbying effort, and it was in the $20 to $25 million range.
One solution that some people are proposing and talking about is an outright ban on handguns.
Right. We've certainly heard that.
What would be wrong with that? There'd be plenty of other guns that you could get for hunting or even for self-defense.
It doesn't address the real problem, Rita. The real problem is criminal misuse of firearms. It's not a handgun in the hands of a law-abiding citizen.
Many Americans are beginning to say that the right to own a gun seems to be trampling on other rights, and particularly a right that Americans believe that they've always had, which is to have safe lives.
Right. There is no right to misuse a firearm. There is no right to misuse the First Amendment. And so we think that people need to look at the difference between firearms in the hands of law-abiding people and those people that criminally misuse firearms. We're pushing the rights of individuals to make their own choice, of law-abiding individuals to make their own choice. If you don't want to own a firearm, by all means do not. If you do, by all means do it responsibly and do it legally. And that's all we're saying.
Next, a visit to the Buena Vista Social Club, where music mixes with politics.
A computer that is so last century. Introducing iPac, the first internet device for business. A kinder, simpler device with the Intel Pentium 3 processor that taps into the power of the internet and meets all your business computing needs. The age of simple internet computing has arrived. iPac from Compaq.
Now there's a free CD-ROM from Strong Investments that can help keep your retirement dreams from slipping away. Just call 1-888-2-STRONG and it's yours free. You're one call away from a strong portfolio.
Is your asthma really under control?
Yeah, but sometimes I wheeze.
Ever wake up short of breath?
I do.
Use your fast-acting inhaler more than twice a week.
I use mine every day.
If that's what you call control, ask your doctor if prescription Flovent is right for you. Flovent twice a day helps control the inflammation that can cause asthma symptoms in the first place and helps improve lung function. Flovent won't replace fast-acting inhalers for sudden attacks. People switching from an oral steroid like prednisone to Flovent, an inhaled steroid, need to be especially careful. While adjusting to the switch, your body is not as able to heal after surgery, infection, or serious injury. See your doctor if your asthma does not improve.
Now this is control.
Flovent, helping you define asthma control.
So they're gonna serve lunch later, huh? You know, that's what I heard.
There are much better ways to get business insight. Next time, ask your CPA. CPAs never underestimate the value.
Mothers, fathers, daughters, and sons, everyday heroes and symbols of one inspiring idea, the American dream. Meet them Wednesdays on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Her murder went unsolved for 20 years. So did the 4 murders in this family.
What do you remember that night?
Just about everything. 48 hours helped uncover new witnesses.
I said, that's the guy that attacked me.
Will a startling link between these crimes help police solve a serial killing spree? 48 Hours, Thursday.
Try as they might, politicians cannot always engage the hearts and minds of people as well as musicians can. And an onstage performance can sometimes have a political impact that far exceeds anything the people on stage ever intended. Martha Teichner tells a story of international political intrigue with an unlikely group of lead players.
Who would have guessed that the Buena Vista Social Club, Cuban musicians in their 70s and 80s, after years of obscurity, would suddenly find themselves one of the hottest groups in the world. An honest-to-goodness, Grammy-winning phenomenon. It came as a shock to everyone, to Ibrahim Ferrer especially.
Sorpresa tan grande que yo aún todavía.
This is such a big surprise for me that I really think that I am sleeping still, or I am dreaming, or I am daydreaming.
And who would have guessed that without ever trying, these musicians would turn out to be Fidel Castro's secret weapon in his assault on U.S. political opinion? And Cuba's accidental answer to Elian Gonzalez. Thanks to chance timing, the shouting match over whether Elian should be sent home to his father in Cuba or stay here in the United States has played loud and shrill opposite the soft seduction of Buena Vista's third American tour. There is a real irony in the stunning comeback of the Buena Vista Social Club musicians. Theirs is the music of pre-Castro Cuba. It is the sound of the society the revolution swept away. It is a sound that has audiences dancing in the aisles wherever the group performs.
We forget about Fidel and the rest of the things, so we're here for music.
It opens a dialogue, hopefully.
Do you consider concerts like these to be a form of diplomacy on the part of breaking down barriers?
Absolutely. I don't think we should close them off because they're communists. I think that's a mistake.
By now, a couple of million Americans have seen the Oscar-nominated documentary that tells the story of the Buena Vista Social Club. They know that in 1997, guitarist Ry Cooder went to Cuba intending to make a recording of West African musicians playing with Cubans. Except that the Africans never made it to Havana.
So we figured we would just go ahead with whoever we could find, and we started asking around. Pretty soon we had a room full of people, including...
As the story goes, Ruben Gonzalez hadn't had a piano in 10 years. Ibrahim Ferrer was shining shoes when they were called in out of the blue to record that first Buena Vista Social Club CD. It has sold 1 million copies in the United States alone, 3.5 million worldwide. They've just recorded CD number 4. Of course, Elian's story is even better known. How the 6-year-old was picked up at sea and then turned over to relatives in Miami.
Just a miracle. God wanted him here for freedom.
How little Elian has become the poster boy for both sides in the tug of war between Cuba and the United States. As his father fights to get him back, and the Cuban exile community fights to keep him here.
It's ultimately seen in the American public as the Montagues and the Capulets, or the Hatfields and the McCoys, as a family feud that American population doesn't really want to be involved with. And
Cuba specialist Pamela Falk says that in contrast, the Buena Vista Social Club attracts people.
It gets to Americans that aren't otherwise involved in politics, but it is a political message. There's a softer side to Cuba, and there's a cultural side to Cuba.
Omar
Portuendo, Ibrahim Ferrer, and Ruben Gonzalez are skittish about politics, extremely careful about the words they choose.
Do you all feel like ambassadors for Cuba?
Bueno, realmente cuando hablamos de embajadores somos como embajadores de la música cubana.
Yes, in some way we are ambassador, not of Cuba, but we are ambassador of Cuban music. We are representative, not just of our music, but also of our cultural life and the culture of Cuba.
But when it comes to Cuban music, they forget caution and understatement.
People can see Cuban music written in a piece of paper and try to imitate it, but the only way that really sounds Cuban is when a Cuban is playing that music.
To see one of these groups traveling around the United States, portraying itself as nothing but musicians, is really a deception. It's really...
To lawyer Nick Gutierrez, one of the younger, savvier anti-Castro hardliners in Miami, the Buena Vista Social Club has a sinister side.
It is politics because musicians are not independent actors in Cuba. In Cuba today, a musician is simply a government agent or a government employee. Their tours are booked by the government. Their revenues are largely kept by the government. They may keep a fraction of what they make.
It's been said that in the United States, anything having to do with Cuba is political. In Miami, home to 600,000 Cuban Americans, it's more so, even where music is concerned. Take last October, when club owner Debbie Ohanian booked Los Van Van, the most famous dance band inside Cuba, for a concert in Miami.
Leading up to the concert, meetings with FBI, secret police, security measures you cannot believe, SWAT teams.
To the exiles, the event was a provocation, like the KKK marching through a black neighborhood. They consider Los Van Van the official band of Castro's Cuba. That night, they rioted. Ohanian had the Buena Vista Social Club scheduled for a Miami concert. Their agent canceled with this message.
I'm not sending my guys to Miami. It's too dangerous. It's too hostile of an environment.
If they feel strongly, it is because of the pain that has been inflicted by the regime in Cuba.
Gutierrez criticizes how the Miami Cubans go about getting their message across, not what that message is.
How can that regime be compared to, you know, a few boisterous protesters in exile? I mean, it's just so different.
For the Buena Vista Social Club, having the times of their lives, whether they play in Miami is hardly something they get worked up about.
We want
the people to enjoy our music. Being in New York, being in Miami, we sing for the joy of everybody.
Siempre que te pregunto que cómo, cuándo y dónde, tú siempre.
They have become believers, famous after 40 years of obscurity. They perhaps know better than anybody. It is all just a matter of time.
Thank you very much. Gracias, Newark.
Ahead on Sunday Morning, why lovers of flowers would rather be in Philadelphia.
Hello, I'm Agriculture Commissioner Bob Crawford. There's a deadly plant disease spreading throughout South Florida, and we need your help to stop it. Citrus canker, a highly contagious bacterial disease, threatens backyard citrus trees and ultimately our $8 billion citrus industry. Unfortunately, the only way to stop this raging disease is to remove infected trees and others exposed to them. We appreciate your understanding, and remember, eliminating canker today means healthy citrus for tomorrow.
Pocket Systems Fine Furniture presents The Pocket Office, an award-winning patented line of furniture designed specifically for the home office. There's even room for a chair inside. Pocket Systems also makes the pocket bed, as well as entertainment centers and bookcases. Pocket Systems Fine Furniture is proudly made in the USA, and we have financing available. On the corner of Sunrise and Pine Island Road, Plantation. Call toll-free 877-577-5750 or dial us up on the web at www.pocketsystems.com.
Oh, ma'am. I think you dropped this.
Toss it back in.
Hello? I haven't forgotten.
I'm on my way. 50 states, one rate, no roaming and no long distance charges. AT&T Digital One Rate, now starting at $59.99. So reconnect. There's no reason not to.
Can you put out the garbage? I was just kidding.
What can I put in my creamy cottage cheese to make it taste so good even kids will eat it? I got it! Pineapple!
Breakstone's Cottage Doubles. Available in peach, pineapple, and strawberry, too.
Join CBS 4 and General Motors for Sunday on the Mile, Sunday, March 5th, starting at 12 noon. Enjoy performances by the Gypsy Kings, Ray Casas, and many, many more. You couldn't plan a better way to spend your Sunday afternoon. Brought to you by CBS 4 and General Motors.
Revealed 5 secrets to instant Cosmo cleavage.
Unbelievable. Okay, what'd she do? You went from an A to a B. I'd say B+ right there.
Glamour don'ts caught on tape. Roll video.
Look at that pashmina sticking out of that coat. It's just useless.
This just in, miraculous underwear makeovers.
That is a good tip.
Top experts tell it all. Next Oprah. Monday at 4 on CBS 4.
Tra-la that have everything to do with this case. For this is the Philadelphia Flower Show, America's oldest, dating back to 1829, and the largest annual indoor flower show in the world. More than 10 acres of gardens and floral arrangements and topiary displays are on view under a single sprawling roof. Gardens for the New Millennium is the theme, cultivating the dream that in years to come, it will be possible to live and work in even the biggest of cities and still be connected to natural beauty. So forget that the calendar says that it won't be spring for another 2 weeks. In Philadelphia, it might as well be spring. The Philadelphia Flower Show opens this morning at the Pennsylvania Convention Center. Our Sunday morning calendar for March 5th, 2000. Still ahead, Bill Geist gets a piece of the rock.
Be the first to know. Is your team in and where will it go? For the breaking news, the NCAA Basketball Championship Selection Show on CBS. The madness is coming to CBS.
For television's most inspirational drama, the address is CBS.
Chuck, it's Rennie. I'm stuck. Call me back.
Rennie, we're doing shadow puppets. Call me.
Chuck!
Rennie.
Call me back.
You just left me a message. I'm not going to touch my phone. Call me.
Tired of phone tag? Nextel's the only national wireless carrier with Direct Connect, a digital two-way radio feature. Nextel, how business gets done. Get free incoming cellular calls for the rest of 2000.
I don't know what it is, but it's ugly, and I want to get rid of it.
Can you see the water spots? Well, those are minerals from our hard water, I think.
You can hear how thick this stuff is.
It's lime away. Works great. Cleans lime, calcium, and rust.
Oh, this stuff is coming right off without even rubbing it.
Look at that! Looks like a lot of that's coming right off, doesn't it?
It dissolved it instantly.
Right.
Lime away. The easy way.
And it's going to save me a lot of money because I'm going to fire the cleaning lady.
Don't say that.
I'm gonna beef up. I'm gonna beef up with kibbles and bits and beefy bits, champ. Now there's real beef in every delicious bite, so beef up with kibbles and bits and beefy bits. With real beef. Uh-oh. That's gonna leave a mark.
Kibbles and Bits Lean. Kibbles and Bits Lean. We're a lean, mean canine machine.
What do they mean by Kibbles and Bits Lean? The great taste of Kibbles and Bits with 30% less fat than the leading dog food.
We're gonna get us some Kibbles and Bits Lean.
Credible, cutting-edge reporters. A reason to watch the new CBS 4 News.
This has been a terrible week in the southeast African nation of Mozambique, which has seen flooding of almost biblical proportions. Alan Pizzi is in Mozambique's Suzá region and has sent along this reporter's notebook.
A South African military helicopter sweeps along the floodplain looking for more survivors. Most have been found, however, and the aid operation is now moving into phase 2, caring for refugees and trying to get them home again. At a drop-off point for both people and food aid, the pace is frantic. 100-pound sacks of flour and cornmeal still have to be moved a few at a time, and the people who are coming in tend to be in bad shape. A woman cradles a badly dehydrated baby. She's not the mother. No one knows who or where she is. An old woman with a badly cut leg needs medical attention before the wound turns septic. And on a stretcher, an even older woman who was found this morning after having been stuck in the mud for a week. She has leprosy and may lose her feet. A French medic offers to do what he can, but privately he tells us, "I hope they understand I cannot perform miracles." This is where the wounded had been staying, a makeshift camp set up by a now departed American missionary. The flapping white sheet provides some shade and helps helicopters bringing food find the 450 souls who shelter here. Some of them were airlifted in. Others managed to flee the rising waters that swallowed their huts and walk to dry land here. Some of them went home when the waters began to subside, then came back this morning. This is the only place they can find food. It's being organized by a British aid team that got here yesterday. Jane Stevenson has managed to find an English-speaking refugee to help. Life has never been anything but hard for these people, and it is especially cruel for the children. Many of them are dehydrated, close to malnourished, and the risk of disease means the relief effort must kick into high gear quickly. As basic as this looks, there is a system here and it seems to work. Aid workers say the saving grace is that these people have both discipline and a sense of social responsibility, which means that in spite of the deprivation, the needs of the individual are not seen as any greater than those of the community. The size of that need, however, remains daunting. As one overworked aid worker put it, "We should have been here weeks ago."
Ahead, an interview with American Beauty director Sam Mendes.
I have a couple who came in and had just so much cash and they were petrified. They wanted to retire and yet they weren't sure they could retire.
Katie Leibrand, AXA Advisors.
We took an inventory of all their assets and showed them they could achieve the income they were used to.
AXA Advisors, part of a global company helping 40 million people.
I'm helping others reach their goals. I just love to see things grow.
AXA Advisors, building futures.
Your phone, your water pressure, the airbags in your car, the toys your children play with. The world around you runs on chips. Agilent makes the testing equipment that makes sure those chips work. Just try to get through a day without being touched by the things we test. You might as well try to dodge raindrops.
Countdown to Super Tuesday, the most crucial day in the primary season and make or break for the candidates. We'll have complete coverage. Also, global extremes. From a volcano where U.S. troops may have to rescue victims to a mountaintop where scientists find the worst weather in the world. All next week on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
It's Sunday morning on CBS. And here again is Charles Osgood.
We are going Hollywood all this month, taking a look at some folks who are the toast of Tinseltown. We begin this morning with American Beauty and its first-time director. Though the film's story, as the title suggests, takes place in America, Oscar-nominated Sam Mendes, to whom Mark Phillips now introduces us, is from elsewhere.
How, the movie-going public is now asking, how can someone who comes from streets like these tell us so much about streets like these? This is typical suburban England, from which director Sam Mendes has sprung, seemingly fully formed, on an unsuspecting world.
Don't tell me not to fly, I've simply got to. If someone takes a spin.
And this is any suburb, USA. It's the setting for Mendes' multi-Oscar-nominated movie, American Beauty.
Lester, could you make me a little later, please? Because I'm not quite late enough.
The film that peels the skin off American suburbia.
Nice going, Dad.
Revealing the bittersweet fruit within. Perhaps a view only an outsider could bring to the land of stuff.
Lester, you're going to spill beer on the couch.
The materialism of middle-class America may be low-hanging fruit ripe for the picking, but oddly, that's not the way Mendes sees it.
So what? It's just a couch.
I think it was the Wall Street Journal the other day. You know, you always know that the film's doing great when it's entering op-ed pages and various other things. And, you know, it said, our latest attempt to make American suburbia interesting, it said. And I thought this was probably one of the most patronizing things I've ever heard said. Not necessarily about the movie, strangely, but about American suburbia. That by definition, if people live in suburbia or any urban, the extreme of any urban center, they're boring.
I love your tie, that color.
I just love your roses.
Well, it's a cliche, isn't it, that suburban life is empty and superficial and boring.
Yeah, and that's what the movie does in the first 15 minutes. It presents the cliche and almost deliberately says, well, here's the put-upon husband, here's the career-obsessed wife, here's the sullen teenage daughter, here's the weirdo who lives next door. You know all these characters, don't you?
But do you? The secret of Sam Mendes' success, now in the movies and before that in the theater, is his ability to take the things we think we know and give us a whole new take on them, to make the familiar revealing.
If you're going to satirize anything, probably suburbia of any sort is the easiest thing to satirize. I mean, it is,
Fat target.
You know, it's what they call carpet bombing the innocent, as they say in this country. And I think it's just, you know, that's not something that interested me. I think what stops this effectively being a satire, I mean, by satire I always understand, well, on some level, the filmmaker or the storyteller or the novelist, whoever's writing, feels themselves to be superior to the characters portrayed. I do not feel myself to be superior to the characters portrayed in this movie.
The pop psychologists have been having a field day with Mendes, an only child brought up by his mother in North London, where he now lives again. Surely, they say, this lonely background gave him the sense of detachment, even bemusement, he now brings to his work. Try again, says Mendes.
I think I'm from a generation of failed families, if you like. But I don't particularly see it as a failed family. I think it's quite a successful family. It just happens not to be together. And this kind of terrible word, dysfunctional, that keeps rearing its ugly head, which is not a word I've ever used. You know, because I've never really met a family that, in those terms, is functional. You know, well, what is a functional family? You know, does it mean that everyone's happy all the time and there are never any arguments? I mean, I've never seen such a thing.
Certainly not an American Beauty. Mendes had waited a long time to make a movie, if waiting into your mid-30s can be considered a long time. He had made his reputation with a string of successes here on the London stage. Again, his formula was to take established material and make it seem new. Notably in The Blue Room, whose fame was not hampered by a briefly naked Nicole Kidman, not seen here. And in Cabaret, a revival in which brutal honesty about the rise of Nazism in 30s Berlin left audiences shell-shocked in London and New York. Spotted for his theatrical skills, Steven Spielberg and his DreamWorks studio offered Mendes American Beauty. And there was Sam on a film set for the first time in his life. No problem.
I do like standing up and bossing people around, and I've always enjoyed that aspect of things, strange though it may seem. After you've got over the incredible embarrassment of actually saying action and cut for the first time. And you know, there was a couple of times the first day I actually forgot to say cut, and I immediately started talking to the actor about what they'd done, and the camera roll. So that my dailies for the first couple of days feature me quite heavily, you know, chatting to various people. And finally someone said, I think he said cut.
In fact, things got off to a very rough start. The first 2 days shooting of the scene where the family finally comes unstuck was considered so bad, Mendes decided to throw it all out and start over.
Would you like to try our new beef and cheese pot pie on a stick? Just $1.99 for a limited time only?
We were just at a seminar. Buddy, this is my...
Her husband. We've met before, but something tells me you're going to remember me this time.
Whoa. You are so busted.
I actually looked at the first couple of days' dailies for the first time since we shot them the other day, and they are flat and really and empty and tonally wrong. But they're not as embarrassing as I remember it. I think in my mind I remember them as excruciatingly embarrassing, and you know, and it makes a better story.
This was the This was the first, so why not?
So why the hell not?
Sam Mendes' American Beauty.
But as his Golden Globe victory showed, Mendes soon learned the rules of the movie game, which ones to break and which to obey.
I want to say thank you to my boss, Steven Spielberg, for being inspiring and for telling me to wear comfortable shoes. I want to say thank you to an amazing cast of actors, particularly to Annette Bening and to Kevin Spacey for trusting me. Thank you so much.
Once in a while in every filmmaker's career, a movie amounts to more than the sum of its parts. And it just happens to have happened to me on my first movie, and I don't think it will happen to me. I'd be very fortunate if it happens again in my lifetime, because it just has a meaning that's way beyond itself. And in the end, all you can do as a storyteller is to make a little pebble and polish it as best you can and throw it into the pool, you know? And if the ripples spread for miles, great. And if they don't, they don't.
Right,
you know,
but it's not all an accidental.
It's
not all an accidental process. You polished the pebble, you launched it on its
absolutely.
trajectory.
And you know, along with a lot of other people who are all involved as well.
Mendes can now contemplate a future full of possibilities. On a rainy day in London, trying to resist the lure of sunny LA.
I mean, look around, it's just so completely empty. This is the middle of the day in central London, you know, there's nobody around. I love that, you know. Rain keeps people off the streets.
The streets and the theaters and the film sets of London and Hollywood and New York now lay at Sam Mendes' feet. So you can stand success in the end.
Well, I'm certainly having a good time at the moment.
It beats the opposite, I guess.
Well, exactly.
Ahead on Sunday Morning, at home with the great egrets of the Everglades.
In case of fire, this is a good place to stand, unless you're a computer. One company that hosts web servers knows that, and Janus knows them. Before buying their stock, Janus went after every drop of information, right down to their fire extinguishers. Their system doesn't use water. It puts out fires without drowning computers. A minor detail? Not if it's your money. Get there. Janus Mutual Funds.
I'm in a payphone. I'm not from here. I took my shopping bags when I turned around to grab the purse. The cab was gone. No, I didn't. I'm very calm, sir. I just left my wallet with $1,000 in the cab. It's all my cash. I have nothing. Excuse me? No, I didn't get the driver's name. You don't understand. I'm on vacation. Everything is in that cab.
Nobody in America sells more office products to more businesses than Office Depot.
You can shop our store. Or you can shop our catalog.
You can shop online.
Taking care of business. It's all mine. Taking care of business and working overtime. Work out.
Office Depot, taking care of business.
Stay on your own side. Over there. Heads up.
It used to be, in order to save money, you had to wait for a sale. Not anymore. Now you can go to netmarket.com. 800,000 items, 1,400 brands, all at great prices, 365 days a year.
I see trees of green and red roses too. I watched them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
We're listening to Joe Williams, the legendary singer who passed on last year. His long career included performances with the greatest bands and orchestras around. Count Basie, Duke Ellington, to name just two. He also won a Grammy in 1984. We're remembering Joe Williams now because, much to our chagrin, we overlooked him during our New Year's salute to the talented people we lost in the old. As his widow, Jillian, wrote to us, "How could you do that? I know you can't include everyone who died, but Joe was a giant," she says. Well, it's true that we can't include everyone, but we certainly should have made room for Joe Williams. He not only was a giant, he still is. On another matter, Kurt and Carolyn Herzog of Grants Pass, Oregon, write to tell us that they are dismayed over changes they see in our broadcast. First, they say, we notice far fewer postcard segments. Second, we do not like the new short segments. Stick with what you do best. Well, rest assured that we're still presenting postcards, but from a wider variety of places. And the fact that we're briefly noting some interesting events of the week doesn't mean that we're ever going to stop presenting longer segments reported in the depth that our viewers expect. Finally, Marianne Ebersole of Glen Ellen, Illinois, complains that we mispronounce the name of the Indian guide who appears on the new dollar coin. Say it isn't so, she writes. Well, we've double-checked, and repeating as accurately as we can what we've been told, the name is Sacagawea. By the way, we've also run into the pronunciation Sacagawea. If you'd like to weigh in on this or any other matter, you can reach us via email at sundays@cbsnews.com or by regular mail at 524 West 57th Street, Box O, as in Osgood, New York, New York, 10019. To Bob Schieffer in Washington now with a look at what's ahead on Face the Nation. Morning,
We're
Bob.
going to talk about Sacagawea, I think. No, Charles. We're going to have John McCain and George Bush, both of them side by side. You can look them over right here.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you, Bob Schieffer in Washington. Ahead on Sunday morning, author Bill Geist wrestles with the publishing success of The Rock.
The competition for food is violent and dangerous for young adults and cubs alike. The feast is a frenetic free-for-all, and the dominant male...
Chill out, tough guy. It's all me.
I don't think
it's
so,
all me.
buddy.
Case
closed.
Oh, no.
It's good to have you home, sweetie.
Fly coast to coast for $99 or less when you purchase tickets by March 22nd. On sale only at www.southwest.com.
You are now free to move about the country.
Morning rush hour moves at a different pace for the co-op of growers who make Florida's natural premium orange juice. Because they own the land, the trees, and the company, they can take all the time they need. So if the oranges haven't reached the perfect ripeness, they don't pick them. Some things in life are worth the wait. And around here, great orange juice is one of them. Florida's natural. Taste the difference.
I've taken care of this garden from the very first seedling. We need each other. But when I got arthritis, I thought my gardening days were over. Then my doctor encouraged me to keep at it, because staying active helps keep joints from getting stiff. And to make it easier, he recommends Advil. It's the #1 recommended medicine of its kind for arthritis pain, and it's gentle on my stomach. My doctor's right. Advil and gardening work beautifully.
Advil, stronger than pain.
I like my little pooch. What do I like about my body?
Jergens, we love every inch of you. So our skin smoothing lotion has alpha and beta hydroxy to polish and shine you.
My belly button!
Jergens, we love your body.
It's taken thousands of hours of work for us to reach these numbers. But for you to reach us, all you need is this number. 1-800-4STRONG. You're one call away from a strong portfolio.
CBS Tonight. When you've lost all faith, when you've given up hope, one show will remind you you're not alone.
You are the one.
Touched by an Angel. Then, when Hollywood's most spoiled actress gets lost in a small town, she'll find something she never expected. A life.
Stick around anyway.
Now, why would I want to do that?
But is she willing to give up Tinseltown for a chance at love?
Oh, that's insane.
Celia Ward and Jane Curtin.
I want you.
In a world premiere, Catch a Falling Star after Angel, CBS Tonight.
Rest assured that nothing happens in the world of letters without us finding out about it. A Piece of the Rock is a report from the front lines of American culture, from our own Bill Geist.
For 21 years, this program has distinguished itself by focusing on fine arts, music, and literature. This morning, we'll visit the best-selling author in the United States, Dwayne Johnson, better known as The Rock.
If you smell what The Rock is cooking.
Mr. Johnson has created quite a stir in the literary world. Just look at these bookworms.
The Rock says, The Rock.
Seldom has a first work been greeted with such universal enthusiasm. The tome is entitled The Rock Says, a memoir that has been #1 on the New York Times bestseller list for several weeks. And the author is our guest here in the Book Nook.
And of course, that was my goal, to reach #1.
That's quite a goal for a guy with a first book.
Oh, absolutely. But The Rock doesn't play around. Right to the top.
Now you're outselling Frank McCourt, the Dalai Lama. How do you feel about that?
Who did Frank ever beat? The Rock has beat them all. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H.
So you think you'd do well with Frank McCourt in a ring?
I think, The Rock would just have to give Frank the people's eyebrow.
Times change. Where once the bestseller list was home to our literary giants, it's now the province of whomever's famous. And The Rock is famous. He can't walk down the street without being swarmed.
Thanks, Rock. You're cool, man. Thanks a lot.
He's been on the cover of Newsweek, in People magazine,
That's the People's VJs counting down your top 10 requests.
on MTV,
Getting Chevy with The Rock.
in Chef Boyardee commercials,
So if you just stir that around until it's nice and creamy.
and yes, even on Martha Stewart's show,
Can The Rock do like a little ganache line?
I want you
which ties in nicely with The Rock's motto.
If you smell what The Rock is cooking.
When do you find time to write? Do you like to write in the morning?
Actually, it was 24/7. It was, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. It was 7 a.m. It was all throughout the day. With my schedule, it's very difficult, very hectic. I'm on the go all the time.
Were you a literature major in college?
I was not, no.
What was your major?
Criminology and exercise physiology.
That's the same as James Joyce, if I recall correctly. Do you like to read?
Absolutely.
Do you have favorite books or authors or anything like that?
Well, I'll tell you, I got to be honest with you. The last book I read was Shogun. And it took me, I would say, 8 years to read that book.
It's a very long book. The Rock's book is a real page-turner, the engrossing story behind the man who calls himself the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. It's the story of growing up in a wrestling family.
Weighing 275 pounds.
His grandfather, a Samoan wrestler, Paramount High Chief Peter Maivia, who refused to disavow his cultural heritage and just blend in. His father, Rocky Johnson, was a tag team champion back when wrestlers wore those funny little shorts. His opponent is now governor of Minnesota, oddly enough. And it tells of The Rock's 3-year struggle for fame from meager beginnings.
As a professional football player, making maybe $250 a week in Canada, sleeping on soiled mattresses that I found out in a dumpster.
It's a good read. Characterize your literary style. There are a lot of pictures in your book. Do you think some books are just too wordy?
I think, you know, it all depends on what's interesting to the reader. You know, the character of The Rock, again, very interesting character. He reaches, you know, a wide demographic from your Wall Street men and women, of course, to, you know, your blue-collar workers.
The Rock saw all this on his book tour.
He came all the way from Long Island to meet you.
Let me show my autograph. Look at my autograph. I got an autograph. I know. Can I just shake your hand?
How are you?
I'm wonderful. This is so cute.
In that line, there were your doctors and lawyers, but that's what happens when the People's Champ comes up.
Give it to him. Good luck. Yeah. There you go. Good luck, man.
Oh, thank you. They feel the electricity, the character of The Rock emits. It was a great experience to meet them and then hear them tell me what they felt about the book and how it helped them change their lives.
He drew 15,000 readers to the Mall of America. More than 6,000 to Bookends in Ridgewood, New Jersey.
Hey, thanks very much. Thank you. Okay.
A store where I stopped on my last book tour.
Is that how you spell it?
Although no girls cried,
Rock's coming. Get ready.
no security forces were necessary at my appearance. I've written, I guess, 5 books, and I've never been #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Do you have any advice for me? Maybe more pictures in my book, or maybe I should stress my high school wrestling, or...
Well, you know, we did speak off camera of your high school wrestling, 127-pound class, I believe. You know.
Yeah, I'm up now. I'd wrestle at a higher weight now.
I don't believe that's going to cut it, but you never know.
Maybe if I pumped a little iron and...
Possibly.
The Rock says...
Some would suggest that having a pro wrestler as our nation's most popular literary figure is the beginning of the end of Western civilization. But don't knock The Rock. He took over the #1 spot on the Times bestseller list from another wrestler, Mick Foley, also known as Mankind.
Well, The Rock and I are officially the only combined tag team champions and best-selling authors to ever team up inside the ring.
And here we thought it was Jane Austen and Louisa May Alcott. You think people are surprised that wrestlers can write a decent book?
I think people are surprised that wrestlers can read a decent book.
Mankind fought his final match last Sunday and is retiring from the ring. Are you going to become a full-time writer?
I may be. I may want to just get a cabin up in the woods and write when I want to. But I'm going to write a children's book next.
You are?
Yeah.
With the runaway success of these 2 wrestlers' bestsellers, many more are on the way.
I'm guessing that a lot of people who read Have a Nice Day probably weren't in the regular habit of reading, and I don't look at that as a bad thing at all. I look at it as, hey, I'm introducing literature to this whole new group of people.
To hear them tell it, professional wrestlers have the entire country excited about reading again. A nation of bloodthirsty bookworms.
Ahead, see you later, alligator. We pay a visit to the Everglades.
Moms don't like to talk about menopause, so maybe your mom never told you.
But you feel physical and psychological changes
long before menopause.
Because estrogen levels change as early as your 30s.
So don't wait till menopause to get Estroven.
The natural plant estrogen supplement.
Estroven's natural plant estrogens act like your own.
to help balance your hormones naturally.
Gently, safely. Don't wait till menopause to get Estroven. Someday you'll tell your daughter about Estroven.
Hurry, we'll miss kickoff.
Wait! Want to
quick bite? Fruit, chips, roast Cornish game ham with baked potatoes, T-bone steak, clams on the half shell.
Introducing a whole new way to cook. The Advantium oven from GE. It uses the power of light to cook in a fraction of the time. Food that used to take over an hour now takes 15 minutes. Baked potatoes, 10. And unlike with microwave ovens, it's crispy and juicy. The new Advantium from GE.
I think we're a little early.
Cooking at the speed of life.
Every morning, the future walks into my classroom. As a teacher, it's my responsibility to empower my students with every advantage. That's why we worked with Dell. Because of Dell's relationships with education software companies, the internet became a learning tool to kindle my students' imaginations. Nothing is more important than giving my students the knowledge they crave. Dell understands that.
Be direct. Dell. Dell desktops use Intel Pentium 3 processors.
How do you measure success? Presenting iChoice from Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, a dynamic new financial program that lets you achieve your success your way. How do you measure success? At Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, we measure success one investor at a time.
Governor George W. Bush and Senator John McCain will talk to both Republican candidates 2 days before Super Tuesday on Face the Nation Today.
We leave you this morning in the south of Florida, in the Everglades. These are prime stomping grounds for that great wading bird, the great egret. But in these treacherous waters, it pays to watch your back. Egrets and alligators in the Everglades. I'm Charles Osgood. We hope you'll join us here again next Sunday morning. Until then, I'll see you on the radio.
Experience you can trust. CBS News.
Seal Award in a world premiere movie. Catch a Falling Star, CBS tonight.
They are mothers, fathers, daughters, and sons. Everyday heroes who are living symbols of one inspiring and powerful idea, the American dream. Meet them every Wednesday on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. Brought to you by Fidelity Investments.